and the different subjects have been brought up, and the speakers that you folks have had for these Thursday night Let's Talk sessions. And I think you've really done a pretty remarkable service to Kiwanis, and I hope that you'll convey that to Sue if she isn't actually listening and hearing this herself. I appreciate what you've done to provide, reliable information to Kiwanians who have expressed an interest in watching your streaming broadcasts, and I appreciate the fact that Sue has continued to be a very active past international president, which cannot be said of all past international presidents. So if she's not listening, perhaps you can convey that to her. So let me go into the comments that I had in mind for tonight. Of course, to thank you for the invitation to speak with you tonight. And I would like to begin with a story. Many years ago, when our children, Stephen and Kathy, were young, I used to bring them with me every year as part of a Kiwanis contingent, helping out at our local games for the physically challenged. One time, Kathy brought a friend who was clearly uncomfortable at being around people with disabilities. But to Kathy, who was part of a Kiwanis family, it was all perfectly normal. That was when I first realized that Kiwanis was not only fun for me and good for the people whom we serve, but that it was good for my own family as well, that it could help make all of us more tolerant, more charitable, more understanding. And from that time on, I saw Kiwanis in an entirely different light. And Kathy went on to become a two-term Key Club high school president. Kiwanis became our second family. And like many of you, I found it to be the perfect vehicle to take the best part of who I am and share it with others, whether it was my fellow members or those in the community whom we serve. And in doing that, I came to experience what I have since called the miracle of Kiwanis, which is this: in the act of enriching the lives of others, we enrich our own lives every bit as much, just in a different sort of way. As Kiwanis members, we make life better not only for our own children and grandchildren, but for the children of the entire world, so that future generations will thrive, prosper, and grow. For more than a century, Kiwanis clubs have served children in their communities and around the world, lending a hand so that children have what they need to succeed in life. We enthusiastically pursue creative ways to make transformational differences that improve the lives of children in their communities. Many children depend directly or indirectly on Kiwanis for things such as vaccines, food, books, safe playgrounds, leadership development, and many other important life necessities. And we do this as part of a Kiwanis global network that is much larger than clubs and members. We connect and collaborate with schools, hospitals, governments, nonprofits, corporations, foundations, and others to improve the lives of children. Kiwanis and its global network of partners are needed now more than ever as the world faces new problems and new challenges, especially those arising from the pandemic. Now more than ever, we share a responsibility to ensure that Kiwanis is strong and growing through new clubs, new members, and new ways of extending our service in communities. Children are quite literally depending on us. With that in mind, I'd like to speak to you about the priorities that I have set as president for this year and ask for your help to achieve them. Our first priority is to improve the club experience in order to increase the value every Kiwanian finds in membership, as well as to attract new members. Let's start out by recognizing that everything of value in Kiwanis happens at the club level, and that the purpose of every other part of our organization is to help our clubs render outstanding service opportunities and fellowship to their members. People join Kiwanis because they expect to find value in membership. They remain members if they do. In order to succeed in recruiting and retaining members, a club needs to provide a membership experience that would make someone want to be a member of that club. Unless a club does that, why would anyone join it? And why would anyone stay a member of such a club? Kiwanis offers a whole host of ACE tools to achieve club excellence, but only about 30% of our clubs use them. And those clubs often fail to take the action that is needed when they identify the changes that should be made. This needs to change. Every club should use the ACE tools to conduct an annual assessment of the value that it offers to its members and the service that it renders to its community. Clubs should make such changes as are needed to improve the club experience for their members. Doing so will make it far more likely that a club's recruitment efforts will be successful and produce long-lasting members, which brings us to the larger question, membership growth. Our second priority is to increase membership through club growth, retention, and new club openings. Why do we always place such a high priority on membership growth and opening new clubs? Well, a growing membership means more service, and in particular, hands-on service. A growing membership means more fellowship. A growing membership solves financial problems at every level of our organization. A growing membership means more outstanding leaders who are willing to serve. And all of these things become even more important as we seek to recover from the effects of the pandemic. On average, more than 27,000 people join Kiwanis each year, proving that people see value and worth in the Kiwanis experience. Whether a member joins a new club or an existing club, each new member provides assistance to an estimated 204 children by actively engaging in club service and fundraising activities. If more of us invited more people to our meetings, to our events, to our service projects, the Kiwanis membership ranks would grow, and we would be able to help more children. More Kiwanians means a bigger impact for the children who live in our communities. The pandemic has taken a great toll on these efforts, and we need now for everyone to get back in the game by inviting family, friends, and contacts and colleagues and others to join our efforts to help children. Opening new clubs is also vital to building Kiwanis in communities worldwide, so that Kiwanis can remain positioned to meet the needs of children for years to come. In the 3 years preceding the pandemic, more than 1,000 communities were changed for the better because Kiwanis found a need that was not being met for the children of those communities. And we have seen over and over again that districts do not increase in membership unless they meet their new club opening targets. The techniques we use to open new clubs are well established, but they require advanced planning, manpower, and a commitment to see the club through its first several years while it's trying to find its bearings. Historically, less than 60% of our clubs survive their first 5 years. Seeing a new club through its infancy requires the right people for that job and perseverance. With that in mind, our approach to new club opening this year will reflect the following. And Larry, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. When funding is available, KI club opening specialists and volunteers should be brought in to help with club opening events only when there is a sincere commitment on the part of the divisions involved and the district to the success of that effort. This requires advanced planning by those on the ground who are most familiar with the chosen community, which at times has not happened in the past. A sponsoring club and a club coach should be identified before volunteers and KI staff are committed to the event. When a recruiting team is brought in, it should continue recruiting for the entire time that it is scheduled to be there, and not leave early if it decides it has recruited enough members, which has happened. In that matter, we should be looking to recruit a minimum of 20 members, not the required 15, and we shouldn't be counting dual members against that number. In fact, our international board has amended KI procedures to exclude dual members from that count of 15. Lastly, we should not conduct a new club's organizational meeting until it is actually ready for it. We should not run poorly attended organizational meetings merely to accommodate a recruiting team's desire to have it happen before they leave town. In other words, we should do everything possible from the opening of a club to give it a good chance of survival. We will all need to work together to grow our membership in whatever ways we can, whether or not recruiting members is your strong suit or your principal passion. And in order to do so, we will need to open new clubs that are built to last. And while we open as many new clubs as we can, it is also very important that we close the back door, that we retain and engage the members we have, and work to keep existing Kiwanis clubs prosperous and growing to be able to have even more ambitious service projects over time. We also know that continued support and mentoring are necessary for sustainable Kiwanis clubs. We need to work to bring clubs under charter strength back to thriving membership levels and to revitalize the impact the club makes on the community it serves. Clubs that have been opened in the past 3 years especially need continued nurturing. Those who serve in the role of a club coach, club counselor, working to strengthen membership in our clubs, play a vital role in this, and we thank them greatly. But as we focus on membership and opening new clubs, let's always remember that at the heart of what we do are friendship and collaboration. Kiwanis Fellowship has been and will continue to be the engine that drives membership, service, and everything else we do. Our third priority is to expand Kiwanis youth programs to positively impact more young people around the world and to develop tomorrow's leaders. It's my hope that in the future, our predominant form of service will be developing tomorrow's leaders through our service leadership programs, the largest of which is Key Club. And it is very important for our clubs to appoint Kiwanis advisors who are fully faithful to the duties that accompany sponsorship. Our service leadership programs are what make us unique. They are what we know how to do the best. They represent hands-on service, not just us raising money to give to others who actually render a service. They offer our greatest opportunity to make this world a better place. Our SLPs are the jewels in the crown of Kiwanis, and they continue to grow. Combined, their membership is nearly double that of Kiwanis's membership. And we must ensure that they enjoy the benefits of their membership in a safe and secure environment. We are doing that with strengthened youth protection initiatives, full compliance on background checks, training for Kiwanis volunteers in our youth protection policies and procedures, and continued growth of the Culture of Care program for Key Club. We have also established a youth protection helpline, which should be called by anyone who thinks that a youth involved in Kiwanis is at risk. The 2021 school year marks our largest recruitment effort in modern times with the launch of Operation Homecoming. Homecoming's goals are to provide the tools and resources at the international, district, and club level to welcome back members who took a year off due to the pandemic, to ensure that all of our members enjoy a positive membership experience, and to expand our service profile in underserved communities. We will continue to build and deliver on the promise of greater programmatic materials for all SLP programs, including meeting kits, service and leadership events, and more. In doing so, our SLP programs continue to cultivate future servant leaders, including potential Kiwanis leaders. However, there is much more that we can do to accomplish this. Historically, the beneficiaries of SLP leadership development have been largely limited to their elected leaders. We have now developed a full-scale youth leadership development curriculum that is available to all Key Club and Circle K members. This is our new Global Leadership Certificate program. It is designed to be a certificated program that will provide them with the tools to be effective leaders in all areas of life. It will be something tangible for all Key Club members to assist them in being admitted to the colleges of their choice. It will make us a more attractive extracurricular activity in schools that have not welcomed us in the past or that may not be inclined to welcome us back following the pandemic. The first 3 courses for this program were offered during its pilot phase last year. They were taken by approximately 3,000 Key Club, and Circle K members at no cost to them. The program is now ready to move on to a full curriculum, and I'm very excited about its prospects. You should also know that most of our SLPs are overseen by a separate corporation whose board historically consisted of exactly the same members as our international board. That has now changed. We have populated a separate Kiwanis Youth Programs Board whose sole responsibility is to oversee these programs, with expertise to do so in such areas as education, leadership development, district administration, and youth protection. This is a significant change that is better serving our SLP members. Our fourth priority is to offer educational and training opportunities to prepare our own current and future leaders for success. One of the recurring themes in high-performing clubs, divisions, and districts is that they all have great leaders at the top. As such, leadership education is vital to the future of Kiwanis service. Our ambitions go beyond Kiwanis service, however. Our comprehensive new leadership development program, Kiwanis Amplify, began this past spring as a web-based program for Kiwanians and graduating Circle K members that culminated in live sessions at our conference in Salt Lake City. Its goals are to provide personal and professional leadership development and improve the Kiwanis leadership pipeline at all levels. However, it offers education and leadership skills that participants can carry into any setting, Kiwanis, business, or otherwise. Participants learn key concepts such as leadership, strategic planning, event planning, marketing, communication, working as a team, self-care, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. The material is intentionally different from what Kiwanians learn in training to hold our positions. We have surveyed our more than 760 participants in the program to see how we can improve, expand, and market it for our new session when it opens next spring. Our fifth priority is to support the Kiwanis Children's Fund, which should come as no surprise since I am a past president of the fund and I have seen all of its good works up close. The fund harnesses the collective impact of Kiwanians around the world to meet the needs of children in many ways that clubs and districts cannot do on their own. In 2020, the fund made more than 50 grants to help clubs address immediate challenges facing children due to the pandemic. Since the start of the 2018-2019 year, the Children's Fund has awarded $4.3 million in grants and scholarships. The Children's Fund provides funds for projects that focus on the following areas: youth leadership development, child education and literacy, and child health and wellness. The last of these includes our historical initiatives in the areas of maternal and neonatal tetanus and iodine deficiency disorders. Here's what I believe the fund's future should hold. We should not undertake a new worldwide service project anytime soon. The focus of our grants should largely be on supporting our SLPs, particularly when and where it may be helpful in building a new Kiwanis club. In this regard, we have found that opening and supporting a key club is often a great incentive to form a Kiwanis club. We should form a Key Club Alumni Association, which will greatly increase our ability to raise funds from them. We should also form a Circle K Alumni Association to accomplish the same things for that organization. Finally, I expect that the Kiwanis Children's Fund will become more involved in assisting and counseling club and district foundations to conduct their own charitable work. The fund is staffed by experts who are also anxious to help clubs and districts with fundraising strategies, foundation management, and grant seeking. If this may be useful to you, please give them a call. So, there you have it. 5 presidential priorities. 5 areas of focus for next year, for this year. And I can sum them up for you in 20 words. Improve the club experience. increase our membership, expand our service leadership programs, develop our future leaders, support our children's fund. Those are 20 words that will require a tremendous commitment from all of us working together to be realized for the good of Kiwanis and those whom we serve. In closing, I would like to thank you for everything that you do to support the great work of Kiwanis. Let's all make a special effort as this year progresses to share the things that we love the most about Kiwanis with others by making our meetings so special that no one would ever want to be anywhere else, by undertaking service projects that bring real value to membership, by inviting new members to join us, and by assisting in opening new clubs to better serve the children of the world. Thank you all very much, and I'll be very happy to take whatever questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Peter. Enjoyed it. You have a great vision for Kiwanis International and the organization, and I'm thrilled to be part of that team that you put together for this year.
I'm thrilled that you're chairing the membership recruitment committee.
Well, it's important. It's important to carry out your mission. So I'm glad to be part of that. So with
it's an overused word, but it's existential. It has to be done for us to continue to exist and to grow. So I thank you for taking on that burden. I appreciate it.
I guess I'll just throw out a question and then we'll open it up. With the numbers that are out from last year, how do you feel? What's your vision that we're going to get to recover from what's happened over the last 2 years through the pandemic? I know you're keen on membership growth and new clubs, but what do you think we need to do as an organization to grow?
Well, I think we need to do some things every year, and we do need to do some things especially because of the environment we find ourselves in and the recovery from the pandemic that is in process in some places better than in others. So the first thing the reason membership growth was the second priority and not the first priority is, as I stated, there is no point in asking members to join clubs that do not provide value in the membership experience. They're not going to stay. And those kinds of clubs are not going to be providing valuable service to their community. So really the first thing we need to do is to look at ourselves and make sure that if we're out there recruiting and we're out there opening clubs, that we are recruiting for clubs and establishing clubs that are going to provide a worthwhile membership experience. I always begin with on the presumption that people are at least as smart as I am. And if I bring them into a club that nobody would want to be a member of, why on earth would you expect them to stay? So I think that's the first thing we have to attend to. And I think it's been some time since we focused on it in quite that way. And I'm sure it's the first time in a long time that anyone said, well, that's the first priority, because it's necessary for it to precede the second priority, even if the second priority is the greater priority. So on the subject of the second priority, I presumed a long time ago that the effect of COVID, the effect of the pandemic would be that it would significantly unfavorably impact on our membership. And it has. The governors, we have a number of governors on the call. We have others who are involved in membership growth on the call. And we've seen that there was a significant loss of members by Kiwanis, which I attribute mostly to the impact of the pandemic playing out over 2 years. So I anticipated that would happen. So I did several things. First of all, I made sure that in the monthly videos that we recorded for our incoming governors, now our governors, I made sure that we repeatedly visited the subjects of membership growth, new club opening, club strengthening, club revitalization. I wanted to make sure that the sense that I had of the importance of these things was imparted to our governors as part of their training. When I say monthly videos, we had a series of videos until we met finally at the end of September in Dallas. I wanted to make sure that the same sense of urgency was imparted, first of all. And I also wanted them to have a sense that this is doable, this is possible. We put together, another part of this is that we've put together a great team, and a lot of time and effort went into putting together a membership recruitment team, and a lot of time and effort went into putting together a club excellence team to provide appropriate club counseling and coaching to new and existing clubs, so that we don't simply walk away from a club after we've opened it and leave them to leave them in a situation where they may collapse, because a new club is like a newborn and it has to be cared for on a very regular basis for the first several years of its existence. But I put together the best possible teams that I could. And that is why, Larry, it was really important that you said yes when I asked you to be the chair, because I didn't really have a second choice in mind that would compare with the way I saw you as a first choice, because you've got so much experience in this and you approach it the right way. There are a lot of things you can do right in membership growth and opening new clubs. There are a lot of things you can do wrong. And I've seen a lot of good things and I've seen a lot of bad things. And, at the same time that I'm stressing to the governors and others on this call the importance of growth, I've also been stressing the importance of opening clubs that are built to last. There is no point in opening a club this year that is going to collapse next year. I don't want to waste anybody's time doing that. And I don't want to poison communities from opening a good club in 4 or 5 years. So, the approach I've taken was really present to our governors an imperative to encourage growth in their district. I know that when I was governor of my district, we were very successful in opening clubs. But one of the reasons we were successful was I talked about it a lot. I presented a lot of materials on the subject to them in my newsletters. I was always part of when I spoke to clubs and to divisions, it was always part of what I had to say to them. I made it clear to my district that this was really important to me. And my experience has been that if governors communicate to their districts that something is important to them, and that they're personally involved in something themselves, which I was in terms of opening new clubs, that it will become important to the people in the district. So that was part of it. The next part of it was to put together the best possible teams I possibly could. The third part of it is that while I fully expected us to take a hit from COVID, it was always my hope that we would begin to recover in a significant way from COVID by the time the new year began. And that has happened, and that is happening. And I think that, my view is that many Kiwanians who have found themselves restricted in what they could do, restricted in their involvement in service, restricted in their ability to meet as a club, that they are essentially a coiled spring that was ready to unwind when COVID made it possible to do so. We're now in an environment in a lot of the world where we can go about traditional club opening techniques. We can go door to door, we can visit businesses, we can go down Main Street, we can identify sites. You mentioned the need to identify more sites earlier, and people can feel safe actually coming out to do that. And those we approach, often business owners, but a lot of other ways to open clubs, those we approach can also feel safe with us coming in. And one thing I didn't mention in my comments is that, club strengthening is going to play a significant part in this too. We feel perfectly comfortable if we go into a community to open a club. We're going to always want to have two club situations. They don't have to be two new clubs to open. It could be opening a club and it could be strengthening a club. That's, that is almost as important, and perhaps is as important to what we do. So I think our the health circumstances now, the psyche of our members is such that we're ready to go out and do something. We haven't been able to go out and do something in a long time, and I think we're ready to do that. And I think the necessity of our doing it is pretty clear if you take a look at the certified membership totals that came out last Monday. We need to do this for the survival and the growth and the future achievements of an organization that we all love. So I'm hoping all of these will work on our behalf, and I'm certainly going to play the role of stressing the need to do all these things. That will be a repeated theme for me, and I'm certainly ready, willing, and able to go anywhere as part of as part of an international president's visit and have some club opening, club strengthening activity go on in which I participate. I don't pretend to be the world's greatest club opener, but I have gone out on 25 or 30 of these over the years. Okay. And I've run probably 15 or 20 organizational meetings for clubs. So, I'm anxious to go out, and anything that I can do to encourage our districts to focus on the importance of opening new clubs. And most importantly, to realize it's possible. There's no magic to this. It's mostly about manpower and hard work and getting everything in place to do it. If we put enough people out on the streets for a long enough period of time in a community, we will be successful in opening a club in that community. Then it's important to make sure that we do all the things necessary for that club to prosper after we leave town. The other part of this that gives me confidence that we can do it is technology. What's happened with technology? We now have the ability through social media, through the proper use of communications, through the assistance of the communications department of Kiwanis International, to do a great deal of mining, prospect mining in any given community and any given area before we actually go into that area. And I've likened it before, for those of you who don't like military analogies, sorry, but I view the effort by social media to introduce the prospects of opening and strengthening a club to a community. I view that as the air campaign that precedes the ground campaign. That air campaign softens the target for the ground campaign. But the other reason I like the analogy is the air campaign almost never is successful by itself. People have to actually go in and do these things. In the final analysis, there has to be a significant face-to-face component. And I think we're going to be ready to do that. There are plenty of challenges. Some parts of the world function more readily than others. One thing I've asked Larry to do, and Dennis Baugh, who's our Club Excellence Chair, is not to think of themselves as just the chairs for North America, but to think of themselves more broadly on a global basis, and to keep track of what goes on in Asia Pacific, where historically we've had more success in opening clubs in recent years, and Europe, in which we've had less success, but we've also had a better time of member retention. And there are reasons based on how they go about opening clubs that you see those patterns. And I sure hope I answered your question.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things that come to mind that I've been, and as I've been speaking to clubs, that I think is very important in your approach. One is that we need to make sure our clubs are good and they're sustainable, as you said. And that wasn't the case. And we put some things in place this year to address that, like dual memberships and like some of those things. In a new club has to be 15 new members, and you can't use the coach as being one of the members. So we put things in place to make sure that our clubs that we do open are going to be sustainable and are good clubs, which hasn't been the case in previous years. So I think we put the things. And the other thing that I think is so important in this is the fact that we're able to do some strengthening with the clubs along with a club opening event. And I think that's very, very important, because I'm getting requests now. Where districts would like to have have help putting together just a strengthening event, which might be 2 or 3 clubs that need to be strengthened. And so those are things that we're wrestling with right now. But
and of course we have to pick and choose appropriately when we look at the club strengthening situations. There has to be an involvement on the part of the club. There has to be skin in the game.
Right.
And there does come a point, one thing I learned in this business a long time ago is that you approach these things with your head, not your heart. And if I have a 100-year-old club that has 2 members, or I have I have a club with 12 or 13 members who are actively prepared to be involved in the recruitment process, my heart tells me to save the 100-year club. My head tells me to go with the club with the 12 members who are prepared, who have skin in the game and are prepared to become part of the process, because it's much more likely that the time and energy that you spend in that situation will be successful and will have value. So it gets.
When you talk about international and being involved with, just was having a conversation yesterday relative to India, they're ready to open 10, 12 clubs next year, which has never been done. But it's because they have people there who want to make it happen.
Yeah,
And
there are two factors.
they're able to go out and do it now.
I think there are two factors that I'm aware of there. The
Yeah.
first is that legally it has been very difficult for us to operate in India. And
Right.
apparently we finally, after many years, cleared up the legalities of how we go about funding our work in India. That's
Right.
the first factor. And the coincidental, serendipitous second factor is that we have a group from Nepal that does a super job of opening clubs. And they opened more than 30 clubs in Nepal this past year. And they're prepared now to go into India and begin opening clubs. And there are many commonalities between the Nepali culture and the Indian and subgroups in the Indian culture. So hopefully things are coming together at the right time and the right way to let us make a major move into India.
Okay.
India has been Lions country for a long time, Lions Club country. The current president of Rotary, I believe, is from India, and it is pretty much tied for the world's largest population. And there are surely enough people in India of appropriate means and interest to actively have a Kiwanis presence there beyond the club in Delhi that we've had for 35 years or whatever. So I'm very hopeful about that.
Okay. Let's open it up to questions from other people about different subjects or if the same subject, different thoughts. So if you got a question, let's go for it. Linda.
Thanks, Larry. President Peter, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you with us tonight. I just wanted to take a second to call attention to the Peter Kiwanis magazine. The one with your face on the cover is the perfect magazine. We've had a lot of magazines that have been helpful to us in using in the community in helping to tell the Kiwanis story. But I think the magazine that has your face on it is a great resource to our clubs in helping to put together their plans for the year. So whether it's used in the division or used in the club or used in the district, it's a great resource because you've laid out the plans for the year so well there. And so I just want to encourage those who are on this meeting and those who you can spread the word to that particular magazine is very effective in helping with the planning in the clubs.
Well, thank you, Linda. And if people, can't bear to look at the cover, they can tear off the cover. The rest of it is still good.
Greg, you have a question?
Yeah, a little bit to that point. Right now the information goes from you, Peter, to the governors, and then the governors to lieutenant governors to club presidents, and then it gets to the members. And so you're not sure it's all going to get there. Does it exist already that we could have some of those, like I don't know, a short thing on each of your 5 goals that we could just drop into a district newsletter or something that in addition to what is in the magazine, so that we could, rather than trying everybody to interpret differently what you want and put their own words, it's there that we could just drop in and get out to everybody. That's a little more succinct than reading the whole article. Just a thought.
I believe that if you look at the last section of the article, you'll see it all there. I think they added a block at the very end of it that that summarizes the 5 goals. And actually, what I'm doing in Kiwanis magazine is I'm going through the priorities one by one with the articles that I write. Though I may very well take a break at some point if something more topical comes up. But let's first take a look at the separate block at the end of the article and see if I'm remembering it that correctly.
Right, and if it's just something we can copy and paste and throw into a district newsletter, something like that.
Yeah, and it's also a question of how lengthy you want something to be too. So
right.
Yes, the answer is yes. It's just a question of what the best way is to communicate it. Those who have been on these calls with me before, like Brad, poor long-suffering Brad, have heard this before. But I absolutely believe that Kiwanis is all about repetition, and I'll be continuing to repeat the 5 priorities in the course of the year. we'll see how they play out and whether some practical examples of success in applying and working within those priorities can be added to what I present. But I fully intend to stay with my 5 priorities, and I'd be very happy if districts chose to put an article about them into their newsletters. So we certainly can make that happen.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Your 20-word summary, I think, is perfect. So it's a great way to be reminded. And we all know that it takes 5 to 7 times of repeating something before it really sinks in. So I am not tired of hearing from you.
But the other part, yeah, and those 20 words are great, but a little bit behind it that gives clubs, okay, now here's 2 or 3 steps you can take for each of these to make it happen for your club. Some action steps related to each of those areas.
I think you just got a sample of that. I think I offered a lot of that. No, but that's probably not something I'm going to put into an article, because I'm going to keep it at a 40,000-foot level. But we can certainly try to provide you with what you want from staff or from the chairs of the particular committees involved.
Other questions? Comments?
Larry, this is Sue.
Hi, Sue. How are you?
Hi, President Peter. How are you?
Hello, past President Sue. How are you doing tonight? You've got some other presentation you're involved in, I understand?
Yeah, I actually am on my way home.
Okay.
I'm not talking on the phone is on hands-free. I actually spoke to the Salvation Army Civic Dinner tonight in Downriver, Michigan. And there were many, there were Lions and the Red Hat group and Kiwanis members there. And then the community board, the Salvation Army board was there. This was their civic dinner for the fall, and had an opportunity to speak with them about, how are we, we talk about the pandemic, right? What did we come through with this health challenge, and how has that impacted our members and our clubs? And, I talked about the different areas that, that we give, that we're looking at the space and the place and, the grace that we're giving people, and talked about how, we need to look to do things differently. We're all servant leaders and we're all doing this for a reason, but sometimes we just need to step outside of our box from what we did in the past. So that's, I had a great evening this, talking to Kiwanians and, things that clubs in general or people in general could talk about as far as, what they could do. And, are they, people belong to Kiwanis, they just don't want to be a member. They want to belong to Kiwanis. And how are we encouraging them as members? So talking about the member experience. And what can we do, or what should we be doing, and what are we not doing? And talking about clubs as far as, where they may have done the same project for 40 years. And now that we shut things down for a year and a half, is it still a project they want to bring back? And how clubs should take a look at those things and realize that, it may not be the right time to bring it back. And it may be a time to look at other ways that we can provide hands-on support and service to our community. So great time to catch up with Kiwanians tonight and Lions and everybody else that was there. So but I want to thank you for being with us this evening. These programs continue to go on. We got a few more weeks, but
well, I gave you some kudos earlier. I don't know whether you were able to hear me at that point, but I pointed out that you were certainly one of our more active past presidents, and that the Let's Talk series that for which you've been responsible, has provided great information and education to Kiwanians all over the world. And you should be very proud of what you're accomplishing by doing this.
Thank you. And as I will tell everybody that's on tonight, they hear this every week, but we are recording tonight's session. So once I get home from Detroit, I will download the recording, or Larry will download the recording, and we'll make sure that your face and the recording gets up on Facebook so that we can share that with all of our clubs.
Okay. I'm always happy to see my face, I guess, except when it was on the cover of Kiwanis magazine, because what happened was that I was at the Governor's Elect Education Conference in Dallas. They gave me 10 copies. I put them in one spot in my hotel room, and every time I came back to the hotel room, I looked down and who do I see staring up at me but me? So I finally just took it and turned it over so I wouldn't have to look at it anymore. On the subject of Salvation Army, it's funny you mentioned that, because my wife and I were talking about the Salvation Army the other day, and I commented to her how little I really know about the Salvation Army. All I know is from bell ringers during the holidays and seeing the film Major Barbara, which I assumed was a war movie until I actually watched it. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Major Barbara. Barbara is a major in the Salvation Army. It's a 1945 comedy, romantic comedy. So, but they do great work, and it sounds like you had a wonderful evening and a productive evening for Kiwanis.
And I think that was one of the things I was sitting and talking with lieutenants tonight. It's like, how did you get involved? Was asking those questions because I agree with you. I remember them from bell ringing or Toys for Tots. We would work with them for Toys for Tots and those things. And so tonight was, I had the opportunity to really sit and talk to their board chair and say, tell me about what you do. How does this happen? And they introduced their, their counselors. And when they started talking about the numbers of people that they were serving, in this little area, and I think he said there were 17 zip codes in the area where they were, but just thinking about the number of children and their latchkey program and that, the number of meals and the number of visits they made to take food to people really struck me about how we are so close. And both of the lieutenants were actually members of that Kiwanis club, but how we've so many things fit together, right? And where, we can help them and they can help us, and talking about just the relationships of strengthening our member experience. If someone had a chance to work with them, that's an opportunity that we could, continue to move forward. So yeah, it was a great evening, and just being able to catch up with people and being in a room and having dinner was great.
They're very natural partners for us, and it's not unusual here to see Kiwanians help them out ringing the bells in front of the supermarkets and so on at the holidays. That's a pretty typical experience here. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the idea of making sure that the club's projects are relevant brings us back to the discussion of the ACE tools and the community analysis, what used to be called the community analysis, the club survey. Clubs need to do things from time to time to make sure they're still relevant, that they're relevant to their own members, that they're relevant to the needs of the community. Of course, if they're relevant to the needs of the community, they probably have a better shot at being relevant to their own members. So those two kind of go together. I would think a club should be encouraged to reevaluate what it does from year to year. Now, the pandemic may have forced some reevaluation. There are a lot of clubs that did things during the pandemic, did not do things they normally would do, and then did some things that they had never done before. And certainly my club's in that category. I mean, we found all kinds of ways to deliver food to people in need instead of having them come to us and so on, and to provide for needs of local businesses that were affected, for medical workers that were affected. And there are many, many stories like that of, necessity having been the mother of invention, and in this case, inventing new kinds of service projects for Kiwanis clubs.
Alan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I'm real involved with the club coaching process up in the Wisconsin Upper Michigan district now. And one of the things I've been finding more and more is most of my time is spent on people problems within a club more than something that can be addressed with the ACE tools. And improving the club experience is sometimes dealing with the difficult players within a club, just so that everybody has a great experience. But the other word I'm using a lot right now is impact. When we reevaluate what a club has been doing for the last years, let's make more impact, because the CKIers love to make impact. They want to see the fruits of their labors, and the same as I believe is really true with the Kiwanis Club.
Well, I've been under the impression for a long time that pound for pound CKI is the most impactful part of our organization. Pound for pound, but they need more pounds, obviously. Yeah, there are a lot of skills that go into being a good club counselor, and people skills are a big part of that. There are the skills involved in sorting out personalities in the club and providing good advice. There are the skills that go beyond just being knowledgeable about Kiwanis, as you said, sorting out personalities, offering advice without telling club leadership what they should do or must do. There can be a fine line there. So there's a whole range of skill set. Now, one of the things we're doing this year in the Club Excellence Committee, I gave it the name Club Excellence Committee because I thought that was a more positive word than club strengthening or some of the others that were bandied about. But one thing we're doing differently, one thing we have done is to try to have the very best people on the committee that we possibly could, but one of them got away, and that was the person who asked me this question. And what we are doing, though, is we're operating on the theory that since there are shortages of qualified club counselors in a number of our districts, that we will have an option for club counselors to counsel clubs, new and existing, electronically, if necessary. I believe that it can be done electronically. We better do it face to face. We better go to their meetings. But if that's impossible, it's certainly a better than solution than not having a club counselor is to provide electronic club counseling and have relationships develop in that way. We've all learned a lot in the past 2 years from these various Zoom calls and platforms that this may not be the same thing as being face to face, but it is certainly enough to accomplish a lot of the things that we want to do. And it's certainly enough to accomplish exchanges of ideas and information. So you're right, Alan, you're right. You get into situations where it becomes a personality conflict, and we're asking for that skill set to manifest itself in the counselors we pick as well.
Any other questions? We're approaching 9 o'clock. And if anybody else have any comments, questions?
Larry, I was just gonna mention that Salvation Army folks make great corporate members of your club. They move those majors in for about 18 months at a time. So don't just go after a regular membership, get a corporate membership so that they always have a seat at the Kiwanis table.
Good advice.
Right, very good.
Good advice to enhance a natural kind of partnership that can exist between the two organizations.
Any other questions or comments from anybody? Well, I want to personally thank Peter from the Michigan District particularly for joining us tonight and providing us some input on his goals and aspirations for this year. You know, it's going to be an exciting year. I'm excited about it because I think it's got a great opportunity. We can now get out into the field and do things that we couldn't do for the last couple of years. So we need to take advantage of that and do all we can to increase the awareness of Kiwanis and build it for our children. So with that, if nobody has anything else, we'll see you next week. I think next week's program is about a club in Michigan that does a raffle type thing that I think they raise about $100,000 doing it. So they're going to be talking to us next week. So and then the following,
That is correct.
That's correct. And then the
That is
following
correct.
week, I think is the Veterans Day, and I think there's a special program. Is that the following week?
So yeah, November 11th. So next week is the Ace of Spades program, or as we're going to call it, East Lansing, the King of Clubs, to really talk about the Kiwanis Club. It's a club in Clinton Township that raised a little over $100,000 during a year of a pandemic. And they're going to talk us about how they did that and the way that worked with the partnership they developed with the local restaurant. November 11th is actually a program I met with the committee a couple nights ago, and we're going to talk about how to honor and engage veterans in Kiwanis. And the committee is all excited about the 4 or 5 gentlemen that I have on the group are ready to go and are going to give us some resources. So we're going to talk about that then. And November 18th is yet to be determined, but that will be our last session for this year because we will quickly here in the States go into the holiday season. And for some of us, a very busy work life for a few weeks. So I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. I want to thank Larry for pinch hitting for me. It's great to see everybody, and I will be back to see you next week. So with that, we'll have a great evening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Peter.
My pleasure. Good night, everybody.